Karen's sneer could curdle milk from across the street. She stood on her pristine lawn, phone glued to her ear, reporting my porch guests like they were plotting a heist. It was a warm Saturday evening on Maplewood Lane, where the air smelled of fresh-cut grass and the neighborhood usually hummed with quiet camaraderie. But Karen, had other plans. Her beef. For neighbors, myself included, laughing over iced tea on my porch, apparently disturbing her peace. The audacity of joy seemed to offend her very soul. Karen was the block's self-appointed dictator, a woman whose weight wasn't just physical but carried in her smug attitude and razor-sharp tongue. She'd waddle out of her McMansion, her floral moo-moo billowing, to scold kids for chalk drawings or lecture dog walkers about leash length. Nobody was spared her wrath, not the mailman, not the ice cream truck, and certainly not me, the single mom who dared host a small gathering. Tonight, her target was us, me, Jamal from next door, Mrs. Alvarez from down the block, and Priya, the new tenant who'd just moved in. We were swapping stories about our kids, our jobs, the usual neighborly glue. But to Karen, we were a threat to her carefully curated suburban utopia. The trouble started when Jamal cracked a joke about his son's science fair volcano, and our laughter carried across the street. Karen's front door slammed open like a gunshot. "Keep it down," she bellowed, her voice a mix of gravel and venom. We froze, startled, but tried to brush it off. After all, it was barely 7 p.m., and the sun hadn't even set. But Karen wasn't done. She marched to her lawn, her flip-flops slapping the pavement, and whipped out her phone. "I'm calling the cops," she announced, loud enough for the whole block to hear. Priya's eyes widened. "For what?" she whispered. I shrugged, half laughing, half annoyed. "Welcome to Maplewood." Within minutes, the situation escalated from absurd to infuriating. Karen paced her lawn, narrating our crimes to the 911 operator with the fervor of a courtroom prosecutor. They're loitering, making noise, probably drinking. She snapped, though the only thing we were drinking was Lipton. Mrs. Alvarez, a retired nurse who'd seen it all, muttered, "This woman's got no sense of proportion." Jamal, ever the peacemaker, called out, "Karen, we're just talking. Come join us." But Karen shot him a look that could have melted steel. "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she hissed, as if his kindness was an insult. The police arrived, 2 officers in a cruiser, looking more tired than alarmed. Officer Daniels, a regular on our beat, stepped out, his face already screaming, "Not this again." Karen rushed toward him, her voice climbing octaves. "These people are disrupting the neighborhood. I can't even enjoy my dinner." She gestured at us like we were a gang of delinquents. Daniels glanced at our porch for adults, a pitcher of iced tea, and a bowl of pretzels inside. "Ma'am, they're on private property, having a conversation. There's no crime here." But Karen wasn't having it. She stomped her foot, her jowls quivering. "I pay taxes. I deserve peace and quiet." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Karen, you're the only one disturbing anything," I said, loud enough for the growing crowd of neighbors to hear. A few had wandered out, drawn by the flashing lights and Karen's theatrics. Mr. Shunned, who ran the block's group chat, was already typing furiously on his phone. Priya, still new and trying to make sense of this, whispered, "Is she always like this?" Mrs. Alvarez nodded grimly. She called animal control on my cat for trespassing last month. What Karen didn't know was that her stunt was the final straw. Maplewood Lane had tolerated her for years. Her complaints about unauthorized Halloween decorations, her petitions against the community garden, her glares at anyone who dared park in front of her house. But this, calling 911 over a porch chat, it was a bridge too far. As the officers drove off, shaking their heads, the neighborhood's patience snapped. Mr. Chin's group chat lit up like a wildfire. Karen's at it again, he posted, attaching a blurry photo of her yelling at Daniels. Comments poured in. She's out of control. Time to do something. The next morning, the fallout began. I woke to find a handwritten note on my mailbox. We're with you. Karen's done. It was unsigned, but I recognized Mrs. Alvarez's loopy cursive. By noon, the block had a plan. We weren't going to stoop to Karen's Lavelno shouting matches or petty revenge. Instead, we'd freeze her out. No more polite waves. No more small talk. No more invitations to the block party. Karen had built her castle on intimidation, but we'd dismantle it with silence. At first, she didn't notice. She strutted out to her mailbox, barking at a kid on a scooter, oblivious to the neighbors turning their backs. But by day 3, the isolation hit. Mrs. Alvarez forgot to invite her to the book club. Jamal stopped offering to mow her lawn. Even the mailman, usually neutral, gave her a curt nod instead of his usual chat. Karen's smugness started to crack. She'd stand on her porch, scanning the street for someone to complain to. But no one met her eyes. The group chat buzzed with updates. She tried talking to me at the store. I walked away. Saw her waving at Priya. Priya kept gardening. The real blow came at the annual block party, a Maplewood tradition. Karen showed up, uninvited. Her muumuu swapped for a garish sundress, expecting to hold court as usual. But the street was different now. Kids ran past her without a glance. The potluck table, usually groaning with her unsolicited casseroles, had none of her dishes. When she tried to join a conversation, people drifted away, their smiles polite but cold. I watched from my porch, a mix of pity and satisfaction stirring in my chest. Karen stood alone by the dessert table, her face a storm cloud, until she finally stormed back to her house. Word spread beyond Maplewood. Mr. Chin's cousin, a local reporter, got wind of the 911 fiasco and ran a story. Suburban woman calls cops on neighbor's porch chat. The article didn't name Karen, but it didn't need to. Everyone knew. Comments flooded the paper's website. Typical Karen behavior. She needs a hobby. A few neighbors even posted the story to the X platform, where it gained traction. Strangers weighed in. Memes were born. And Maplewood Karen trended for a day. Karen's infamy grew. And with it, her isolation. By month's end, Karen's McMansion had a for sale sign. Rumor was she couldn't handle the silence, the stares, the knowledge that she'd become a pariah. The day she moved out, the block threw an impromptu barbacoino invitation needed. Just good vibes. Jamal fired up the grill. Priya brought homemade samosas. And Mrs. Alvarez led a toast to peace on Maplewood. We cheered. The weight of Karen's reign lifted. Karen's downfall wasn't just about her 911 call. It was the culmination of years of her belittling, her entitlement, her refusal to see the humanity in those around her. She thought she could control the block with fear. But she forgot that community thrives on connection, not complaints. Her punishment wasn't revenge, it was consequence. The neighborhood didn't need to yell or fight. We just stopped letting her matter. As the moving truck pulled away, I sipped my iced tea, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. Maplewood Lane felt lighter, freer. Karen was gone, and we were whole again. The end.